Marshall in the middle.
And we are live back in the NBC room. What's going on, my fellow soldiers, fellow veterans?
Whoa! Welcome back. Welcome back.
Hey,
They're
man,
born.
we had a nice little hiatus, haven't we?
We couldn't get it together, man. I'd had a soccer game, or you'd be wrestling in some kind of a load, or Nate was over there wrangling them up a park model, so yeah, boy, busy. That's
We were just saying off screen, man. I was hanging my ass in my trailer off a cliff overhanging the Pacific early this week, man. Been in the mountains all week, man.
no thanks,
Mountain man. And I even got the beard to prove it. Hey, man. Hey, so as you guys know, we are very big on the oath we signed on to, foreign and domestic, and I think there's always some kind of threats to be looked at, and take and zoom in on a micro scale to it. That's hence the NBC room, nuclear, biological, chemical threats. Man, we got to really dig into them and figure out what's happening. And what better place to start off than foreign? We had all earlier this week. I know you guys heard about the hearing. Did you guys get a chance to check out the hearing with Marco Rubio?
oh yeah.
I mean, my goodness, man. I mean, I got some clips to share with that. I think Marco Rubio did a great job. His initial opening statement, I don't think I'm gonna cover it. I don't think it's pertinent for us to open up with it. But he listed off about 15 to 16 different locations that I didn't even realize that we were intertwined in. And then when I went back and did my research, it looks like, yeah, we were actually settling drama all over the damn world this year, man.
Yeah.
Like Captain America, But what did stand out to me out of the whole thing is entourage of things, and I want to highlight some of that. So, Top, if you want to, we could dive straight into this foreign affairs meeting.
Let's do it.
All right. Tell me if you guys got audio.
Have put this into action.
Thank
Good.
you. Well, let me just, before I address
All right.
the ranking member.
So right here, he's talking about the conflict of Iran right now, and I think he did a good job of laying some things out. And he kind of laid out what the outline is and what they see they have done and what they're doing and why they've done it. And after this plays, I'm gonna let it run and play a little bit of the back and forth. I want people to really digest who they're sending to Congress. And this isn't all of them. This thing lasted for 3 days, right? You had the Senate hearings, you had the House committee, you had the other foreign affairs committee. All 3 days, they blistered this man for 2 and 3 hours apiece. I did my best to catch most of it, so so I could be up and informed on what's happening and who's who. And I'm totally ashamed on both sides. I'm ashamed of the Republicans that were overly glazing them. Looked like they wanted to drop to the knees every second. And I get it, it's your side is our side, right? But there's some objectivity that needs to be done too. And then on the other side, you had the onslaught of just bimbo babble. I don't even know what to call it. It was crazy. It's just nonsensical questions with no time for answering. But anyway, I'll play it through. And then there's one Democratic senator that I do want to highlight, not because I agree with anything she said. Actually, I disagree with 99% of what she said, but because of how she came about it, I think that most Democrats in this country need to take a key look at her as for how we actually go about things, because she actually earnestly seemed like she wanted to get to the bottom of what she was asking. It seemed like it was actual that she was really intrigued on the question she was asking. So with further ado, let's play this clip real quick and get
Made
to the bottom of it.
accusations against the president, which I've never heard before, but number one, are completely false. Not once. Just to be clear, not a single time, not even for a millisecond, has the president ever discussed his personal economics in relations to war or any public policy that he's made for that matter. And I've been in every one of his foreign policy meetings for the most part. As to your point, what we need to understand is exactly what you just said. It's not just that we say they can't have a nuclear weapon. Everyone says they can't have a nuclear weapon. The Chinese say they can't have a nuclear weapon. The Russians agreed they couldn't have a nuclear weapon, but at a point you have to do something about it. What Iran was trying to do was build a conventional shield of drones and missiles and a navy and capabilities. At some point, they would say to the world, now we're going to get a nuclear weapon, and you can't do anything about it because we have so many weapons and so many drones and so many naval vessels that the price we will inflict on you for trying to do something about it makes us untouchable, makes us immune. And the president was not going to allow them to build a conventional shield behind which they can develop their nuclear program. Today, the Iranian Navy sits at the bottom of the sea. They do not have a Navy. It no longer exists. They have no Air Force either. Their missile launchers have been significantly degraded. Their defense industrial base has suffered upwards of 80 to 90% of attrition. It will take years for them to rebuild it. Those are facts. That is the reality. That was the purpose of Epic Fury. It achieved its purpose in degrading that conventional shield. And it has brought them to the negotiation table that hopefully will lead to the point where Iran will give up its enrichment ambitions, will turn over the highly enriched uranium, will stop sponsoring terrorism around the world.
Right.
You know, given the amount of
So I think that was a great elaboration on why we were there. But let me play a couple reactions to what he outlined and how these oppositional people came to the table. Very unserious.
time that I have,
This
I will
was-
ask you
This was Democratic Representative Gregory Meeks out of New
to
York.
give me yes and no answers. Did you warn President Trump before the war in Iran began that this conflict would drive up cost on gas, food, travel, and shipment?
Yeah, I'll
Yes
warn
or
you
no?
right now, I don't do yes or no answers.
Yeah,
So if
well,
you-
I
these are
only have
complex
5
questions.
minutes. I know when
Well,
you
so
was
do
the
I.
senator, you know
I
about
never
this
did yes or
business,
no answers
and I
to
know you're
people.
trying to go out so that you can run out my 5 minutes. That's a simple
I'm trying to
question.
run out your 5 minutes. You're running out your 5 minutes.
Did you-
I don't do yes or no question. You want to answer me a question, I'll answer
I'm
your
answering,
question.
you answer my question, it's my time. Did you?
Did I what?
Yes or no? Did you warn President Trump
The president was
before
fully,
the Iran war began that this conflict would drive up cost on gas, food, travel, and shipment?
The president,
Yes or no?
The president and the full administration was aware that there would be consequences to action, but the consequences
Let
of
me
Iran
move
having
on.
a nuclear weapon were worse.
Did you warn him?
Gave their word to Ukraine, they would defend them. And I found this amazing. In your opening remarks, that you took us all over the world and you mentioned 15 different incidents where you have interceded. 15, the top 15. Not once did you mention Ukraine. When you
Jesus Christ.
apologized for the achievement that's there.
Sorry
Now, let
about
me
that,
go-
man.
Let me go on. Oh, you tried to stay.
It's insane.
Please.
Like
It's not funny.
Ukraine.
It's not funny, Secretary. Now,
What's not
in
funny is
Iran
that-
now,
Well, you don't.
in
this is-
Iran
you
now,
can't even
I
answer
reclaim
questions
my
here.
time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman. I
Answer
reclaim
questions
my
here.
time. I reclaim my time, Mr. Chairman.
You
He's
guys make these
interrupting me.
statements
This
and
is
no one-
just clown theater. Is all it is. It's just
Clown
clown
theater.
theater.
I'm
Yes,
doing it.
sir.
I'm asking you to
They
reclaim
might as
those-
well be wearing wigs and makeup.
Now in
It just it's Looney
now in
Tunes.
Iran,
It's,
what goes
it's,
around
it's,
comes around, Mr. Chairman.
it
Now in
needs to be
Iran,
highlighted.
The Trump administration issues
And
a
I
general
want
license
to break
to
down
Russia,
why this needs to be highlighted in a
providing
moment.
billions in oil profits every month, several billion every month, fueling Putin.
Representative Liu is recognized.
One of these meetings. It is from last December. It's a cabinet meeting. I'm going to ask you to focus on President Trump, and you will see that he is sleeping while you're
Oh
talking.
my God. Are you-
Please the video.
I don't even know how to respond to that, other than to tell you that it's absurd and ridiculous. And I can't believe we're in a Foreign Affairs Committee meeting in front of the House at an important time in American foreign policy.
Just keep lying,
Answering
Secretary Rubio.
questions
Just keep
From a
lying.
so-called, supposedly someone who thinks he's a medical expert, when he's not. The truth of the matter is, we had a cognitively impaired president in office a few years ago. That's a cognitively impaired president, but I don't like to talk about that because it weakens America. This president we have, this is a guy that literally doesn't sleep.
So I have one last question for you.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Secretary, who won the 2020 presidential election?
I'm not here to answer a question. We're talking about 2020. This is a Foreign Affairs Committee.
Okay, great. You
Opine on
can't answer the
political matters.
question,
No, I
even
don't
though we
answer the-
all
no,
know that
I don't
President
answer the
Biden won.
question because as Secretary of State, I do not participate in domestic
This is not
political
about
issues.
domestic political issues.
certainly
This is
is.
about our democracy.
You're asking me to opine, just like I don't do campaign
It
rallies.
seems
I
like
don't do
you,
because as
it's-
Secretary of State, we're not supposed to. That's been the long tradition of the department. And you should know that if you've been on this committee for any period of time.
Mr.
you're-
Secretary, it seems like you have an
Questions.
issue admitting facts. You can't say that the president lost the 2020 election, just like you won't admit President Trump is losing this reckless war of choice, and just like you couldn't admit that the shoes the president bought you were too big. You clearly don't know what winning means, and not because the facts are unclear to you, it's because telling your
Look
truth
at the lady over her shoulder grinning.
and the American people are
They love it.
Secretary of State who tells them the truth even when the president doesn't want to hear it. And my constituents, our service members, deserve better. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
I don't know what shoes she's talking about. What is she talking about?
What is she talking
Representative Burchett.
That's the clown theater. She wrote that and was going to read it no matter what he said.
Actually, pretty.
She has some narrative that makes she doesn't care. She's going to make her Twitter statement or her soundbite or what it really should be. We should do away with it somehow. I don't know. It's nuts.
So, I highlight this because these are who we have elected to be in charge of our purse, our finances, our debt, who distributes the finances across the country, which we're going to dig into that a lot later. The outcomes of these elections impact us in a weird. Have you guys ever heard of the boiling of the frog analogy, where supposedly the frog sits in the water, starts getting hot, doesn't jump out because it's getting acclimated because it's cold-blooded, and before it knows, it's boiled and dead. I feel like us ignoring the fact that we have all these clowns we keep putting up here to be in control of our purse strings and play these theater games, and they're not serious people, very unserious people. We are leading ourselves to damnation with this, because when it boils down to it, there's so many people that are up there not to actually get understanding of what's happening, but looking for gotcha moments to rile their base up, to go on social media and rile people up to vote for them because they're fighting against something, or the content. This is a foreign affairs meeting, and they're talking about shoes. The last person in here that I wanted to show, which comes up next, is Senator Jeanne Shaheen. All right. She actually brought some things forward that I want us to discuss, and I want to get you guys' opinion on, because she actually, in my mind, voiced some concerns that maybe this is my olive branch to liberals. Maybe I believe that liberals are really concerned about this. And I want to know, what is the take on this from you guys' perspective? Is this something to be considered? Are these things to really think about or not? All right.
Good. They fit fine. I don't know what she's talking about. And maybe that's what she's referring to.
Your shoes look very nice today, Mr. Secretary.
How can you see them? They're way down here. We're talking about shoes. Are you guys kidding me? I mean, is this the Foreign Affairs Committee, or is this like a circus? What is this?
I think it's a circus.
Mr. Secretary,
All right,
you were
here
a
she is.
senator. You sat on this committee. You sat on the Intelligence Committee. You know as well as anyone that effective American foreign policy requires a strong partnership with Congress. Allies need to know that our commitments can stand the test of time, and that only happens if Congress is brought into the discussion. Congress cannot be a partner if it's kept in the dark. I have a long list of unanswered requests sitting on your department's desk. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask that these letters be submitted for the record.
They'll be submitted.
I've requested a briefing on changes to U.S. force posture in Europe. And after 33 days, we still have no response. We've requested a briefing from the Iran war on displacement. After 90 days, we still have no response. We've asked for a briefing on Ukraine on a number of issues. After 180 days, we still have no response. We've asked for a briefing on lifting Milorad Dodik's sanctions. 25 days, we still have no response. We've asked for a briefing for the U.S. Agency for Global Media. No response after 344 days. The Romanian visa program termination. We've followed up 5 times over 435 days, and we've still gotten no response. In January, when you were before this committee, I ask if you would report to this committee once an audit system was in place to track Venezuelan oil revenues. You said, and I quote, "Oh, absolutely, yeah, we are still waiting." And when you do notify Congress, it's to inform us of decisions you have already made. That is not consultation, as you well know. That is not advice and consent. Congress has been clear on a bipartisan basis. We do not want to cede ground to China. Yet this administration is closing consulates and cutting funding in the Indo-Pacific. The same pattern extends to global health. USAID supported Ebola detection and prevention activities in DRC and Uganda for years. And we can see in this poster, even Elon Musk was Ebola prevention. Well, those programs were dismantled. And today we have to screen for Ebola at Dulles Airport rather than in the DRC and Uganda, more than 7,000 miles away. You're asking for a 44% reduction in the State Department budget. That includes eliminating funding to the World Health Organization. It includes eliminating all disease-specific funds in the middle of an Ebola crisis that's affecting Americans. Yet, no one from your department can explain to us why this is a good idea. You sent Congress one notification saying you needed $19 billion to close out USAID. Then you sent another saying you needed some of that money to respond to disease outbreaks. Congress has asked for an explanation, and we still have not received one. The same pattern extends to our alliances. I just returned from a bipartisan delegation to the Arctic. We are on the verge of losing the very alliances that we have built for decades because the president manufactured a crisis over Greenland. And nowhere is that clearer than with Russia. In 2017, you wrote, as a senator, that Vladimir Putin will never be a trusted ally or a reliable, constructive partner. But since taking office, you, the president, the vice president, Steve Witkoff, not one of you has been to Ukraine. And yet, your envoys talk to Putin on a regular basis. The president has invited him, given him the red carpet treatment on American soil. But yet, you won't come up here and brief Congress on any of it. And decisions Congress has made on Russia have been systematically undermined. Congress passed support for Ukraine. The administration has slow-walked it. And instead of sanctioning Russia, the administration issued oil licenses that have sent billions to Moscow. Congress has asked what this approach has produced. Russia has conducted 5 times more drone strikes on Ukraine since 2024. More U.S. businesses are being directly targeted than at any point in this conflict. And Russia is providing targeting intelligence to help Iran hit our facilities and personnel in the Middle East while we're helping them fund this war. When I talk to my constituents, they ask for economic relief at home, not regime change in Havana or Caracas or Tehran. Instead, you sent Congress a war powers notification saying we are not in active hostilities with Iran, while the U.S. was conducting strikes against Iran and Iran was bombing U.S. embassies and bases throughout the Middle East. That was not consultation. It was an attempt to avoid answering to this committee and this Congress about this war. Congress has asked basic questions about the war. Why are roughly half of our Patriot interceptor stockpiles gone? Why does the Strait of Hormuz remain closed? Why is gas up $1.50? Why did 13 American service members lose their lives in this war? Congress deserves to know why, and Americans deserve to know why. Mr. Secretary, you would not have stood for this kind of stonewalling by the administration when you were a senator, and you certainly shouldn't stand for it as Secretary of State and National Security Advisor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator.
I gave her the floor and airtime just then because I do believe that her concerns are not without merit.
Right.
The state, and I believe that there's a large percentage of our population that feel and agree with her and are level-headed enough to organize their arguments in that manner, right? And not the kabuki theater that we have been seeing from a lot of the other party, right? So I want to open up the floor to you guys before I give you my take on the litany of what's going on. What stood out to you, Top, in her statement, and what do you agree or disagree, or is there some nuance somewhere in something she was talking about?
So I liked what she was doing. No matter what side she was on, she was just simply asking questions. I think that's what Congress does. She laid out some facts. Just, hey, we asked you about this. It's been 180 days. We asked you about this. It's been 90 days. And I think all that stuff, I think everything she said was valid. That's what Congress should be doing, not what the other lady was doing. And the guy was like, you saw him fell asleep that one time, didn't you?
Right,
And, you saw they gave you shoes, or you were at a party when, somebody else was negotiating peace, supposedly. I think that congresswoman or senator was doing the right thing.
What about you, Nate? What you got on this topic?
Okay, her questions, number one, were directed. The majority of her questions were directed at the wrong cabinet member. Number one, okay, he doesn't have control over military declination in Europe. Number one, okay, that's the War Department. He doesn't have any control of the study of Ebola in other continents. Okay, she's going to have to refer to the CDC on that. The director of the disease control. I can go on and on. Yeah, she was directing questions, but it was to the wrong person and not almost directly to the wrong setting. Everything I just heard her say was negative. I didn't see anything positive of any positive structure that himself as the national security or the Secretary of State. I didn't see anything positive that he has done correctly. It's just everything's just as usual. The clown show. It's still the clown show. She may sound advanced, and she may sound like she's on her A game with the questions, and professional. She sounds professional. But I tell you what, who the fuck do these people think they're asking questions to? I mean, honestly, who do they think they're going to sharpshoot here? I mean, like, seriously, do they not know who this man was? And then they have the audacity to sit there and look at him in the face and say, I knew you when you were sitting right here in this room, in this chamber, when you were a senator. Okay, if you knew Marco Rubio as a senator on that committee, particularly, nobody could get two words in because he was just sharp. He is very sharp. And to think for 2 seconds that these amateur clowns are going to sharpshoot him. And I'll tell you another one too. What's his name? Bennett. Who's the cabinet treasurer, secretary of treasury? Bennett.
Yeah.
Or Barrett.
Yeah.
Barrett or
No,
Bennett. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. The gay guy.
The gay guy married. Hey, a conservative gay guy married to a black man. I mean, that's about as fucked up as you can get in the Democrats right there, man. You can't mess their heads up any more than that, bro. But anyways, talk about going against the narrative, right? He is so smart. I watched him today, man.
Scott Bessent.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, Scott Bessent.
The funny thing, I watched him today, man. Yeah, he looked at that. He looked at that representative, and she was trying to sharpshoot him. And he asked her, he goes, do you know who the president of the United States was during World War I? And she couldn't answer it. He just put her on the spot. The problem is these people that are asking these, not even asking questions, they're trying to sharpshoot these people. They're not making these questions up. They're not writing this shit. They have admin people that write this shit for them. They go in front of the cameras in these chambers, and they go in front of these news networks, and they make fools of themselves, because then they're stuck in the corner. They don't have an answer when you're trying to sharpshoot Marco Rubio, okay, or Bassett, as an example. Go ahead, bro.
Back on you a little bit, Nate, on that. You really know where I align at, but I'm trying my best to be as objective as hell, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is a reality that, okay, yes, some of the things that they're questioning Rubio about isn't his wheelhouse, like the Ebola epidemic breaking out in Europe, in Africa, like the the Strait of Hormuz and why it's still shut down. You know what I mean? Well, to a degree, he's kind of in the negotiations, but
Sure.
when it comes down to wartime, that's
Yeah.
not his wheelhouse. But these concerns are no less palpable to the American people on the left.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And what do you say to combat the framing of these questions, right? Like the framing of these questions come from a place, in my opinion, somewhat unknowing or ignorant to certain things. And then at the same time, some of them are real concerns, but they may just not be landing right. What would you say
Right.
to that?
What I say to that is ask the correct questions to the correct cabinet member, to the correct secretary sitting in front of you. And what I mean by that is this administration is so transparent. Okay. You get the Secretary of War. Okay. You get the Secretary of Treasury Department.
Yeah.
Okay. You get the CDC sitting in front of these people on a regular basis. They're in front of a television camera, or if they're not in front of a television camera, they're on Capitol Hill answering questions, if not on a weekly basis, on a daily basis.
Right.
Okay. So the problem is, it's not that she has been struggling to receive answers to questions that she had 60 days ago. You're dealing with the most transparent administration, at least in my lifetime. As a matter of fact, if you don't see Marco Rubio, JD Vance, or President Trump at least once a day on television, or Pete Hegseth once a day on television making a statement or briefing the United States on what's going on currently, then I think something's wrong. Okay,
Right.
now I'm questioning. Oh man, is something wrong with the president? I ain't seen him in 48 hours. What's going on? I know he just did another rally speech tonight in I believe Wisconsin about, and then yesterday he just had a big production thing on the coal industry. We can get into that some other time, but yeah, I appreciate your question, and it is
Yeah.
correct.
Right.
It's absolutely correct. If you're dealing with an administration that hides out in the West Wing and you don't get to see their faces hardly, that's not the case here.
And I agree with you, and also Top's take on it. My biggest concern, right, is what I hear coming out of her is a for one, people that didn't vote for Trump, didn't vote for the Republicans at all in any kind of way, but may have some kind of inclination to want to be objective, but they just are coming from the left side,
Mhm.
right? I'm trying to look at it and empathize with them with good faith. And I'm asking myself, because I have certain concerns also. When this whole thing in Iran first started off, my whole perspective was, hey man, we dropped these ships, we dropped these bombs, and we knocked out their military. Let's pack it up, boys. You know what I mean? That was my take. And here we are 3 months later, and every week on the dot, we're close to a deal. We're close to a
Yeah.
deal. We're close to a
Agreed.
deal. We're close
Agreed.
to a deal. And about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think I said something on the air where I was like, yo, at some point, you got to be like, we can't discuss this.
Yeah.
We can't discuss this. But that opens up the door to more of what she's saying, right?
Mhm.
So there's some nuance where it's like, okay, well, how do we navigate these waters? And my biggest concern of trying to figure this out, this conundrum out, is because these type of issues motivate people to go to the ballot box, right? And the ballot box is what ultimately affects our realities in different cities, which we're going to get into in a minute. And my biggest concern with these inconsistencies that I'm even seeing, and I'm a diehard Trump supporter. I'm a MAGA. I ain't gonna lie, I'm a MAGA guy. There's been 2 times since the first administration that I've been disappointed with Trump. The first time in the first administration is when he jumped on that huge, humongous omnibus bill. I was 100% pissed off about it. The second time was him and how he handled Hormuz. And we talked about this a few times, and it's not because he didn't engage properly. I don't think he withdrew properly. I don't think that the mission hasn't been focused. He's playing like and I said before about General King, right? When we talked about General King and his perspective, how he was such a war hawk, and I was like, for the first time, I'm actually with him, because all of this thinking that we're going to negotiate with Iran and get some real outcome when for 47 years they've been jerking us along. I feel like the Trump is too much of a pragmatist, and he's trying so hard to get a deal that he doesn't realize that it's weakening his position, because all they're doing is trying to lay in bunkers and hold out and hurt his side politically over here. And I think a lot of people are falling for it, even in the right wing.
Yeah, at least 4 of them on the right wing there. 4 representatives this week, Tuesday, as a matter of fact, to be daily correct. As you know, that we haven't even mentioned yet. These individuals that you just showed are so adamant about answering these questions about Iran. But do they really want the answers, or do they just want to throw obstacles at this administration to make them look like fools and to destroy the whole plan of success? And I'll give you an example. The War Resolution Act that they passed on Tuesday, the House of Representatives. Okay. Oh, by the way, 4 Republican representatives jumped on board. Okay. You got Warren Davison from Ohio, Tom Barrett from Michigan, Brian Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania, and Thomas Massey from Kentucky. Okay, these individuals just jumped ship. And you know what? If you have a legitimate reason, but none of them have a legitimate reason. The only reason
all of them lost their elections. Their primaries, because they weren't endorsed by Trump. Their opponents were endorsed by Trump. And on the way out, they wanted to give them one last fuck you.
Yeah, just like, you know, just like McCain did on the what was that, the Obamacare, you know, bill, the one vote. You remember that? 2 o'clock in the morning, whatever it was. But anyways, my point being is, they War Resolution Act, we haven't fired around. I mean, we have in certain onesies and twosies incidences, as everybody knows. Defense purposes, you know, they're shooting at Kuwait and they're shooting at Bahrain and all this stuff. Got it. And that's another thing that pisses me off too. Like you said, how long are we going to go when Iran continues these daily strikes? Because I'll wake up tomorrow. You'll all wake up tomorrow. We're going to turn on the news and we're going to see last night Iran struck again at a Kuwaiti military base. You know, you're going to see it. And it's getting old. Patience are running out.
Patience was gone weeks ago.
So did y'all see today the news? Jimmy Dore and several others had intel where Iran has said, look, we have a bomb. We have several bombs. We have nuclear bombs, and we are going to explode one to prove it on our own soil. Have y'all seen those reports? They seem legitimate.
I did not see that. Nor did I hear about it.
Yeah, you need to send stuff like that to me ASAP. When you see that top, you know, I need to see stuff like that.
Yeah, so these are legitimate folks, and what they're saying is that they communicated in a way that they knew would get intercepted, and they said one of the reasons why we haven't been willing to even discuss nuclear, and that's one of the ramifications, in order for Iran to come to the negotiating table, they're saying you have to do 2 main things. And the first is stop bombing us. And then 2, open the straits so that the oil can come in and out and everything can go back. And then we'll begin talking. And then the third thing, we might talk about nuclear.
With that being said, you know, let's just go down that rabbit hole for a second. With that being said, it means that intel was actually on to something to even lead us for Trump to make the decision he made. Because we already knew about the enrichment. We already knew what grade they were getting up to. And the fact of the matter is, a place like that never needs to have nuclear weapons. You know, the reason why I'm so adamant about that is anybody who gets punched in the mouth and then comes back and shoots the whole club up, no matter who's there, you know, you got in a fight with somebody and now you're shooting everybody indiscriminately. You're not a sane person. We need to take guns from this person. This person doesn't need to be shooting everybody. He doesn't need to be holding hostage international waterways, you know. And in my mind, you know, I think that yes, if they actually do have the weapons actually made and put together, yeah, that changes negotiations a lot. You know, that's the same reason why we negotiate the way we do with Russia, China, Pakistan, India. But at the same time, um, it does give credits to why Trump probably made the decision he made. Me and you had a talk the other day offline where I was discussing 2023 year my executive decisions in my business and how I had in 2023 we grossed $1.2 million, and I ended up doing my taxes at the end of the year and spent $1.8 million, right? And so basically I took a major L 2023, almost 500K, a little bit over 500,000. And it was horrible. It hurt. And what I do remember the most about the year prior was the year prior was so good that I had all of these plans, all of these ideas, all of these goals, and I had to make executive decisions before the year started, during the year when it came down to my employees, my trucks, my maintenance, all of these things. And every fucking week, every fucking day, there was something else, a new curveball, a new situation, DOT here, FMCSA here. It was always something that was changing my plans. So I think that a lot of times we don't give our leaders that human error, that they are in a position of authority that has to make hard decisions, even if we don't agree with them. And I know you guys have probably seen that a million times in y'all career when, maybe the LT or maybe the BC, you know what I mean? They're talking crazy and you done been around for so long. It's like, look, man, that ain't gonna work. But you know what you gotta do? You gotta stand at ease and go about your business, right?
Yeah.
So I think, when I look at his actions, I can't do nothing but try my best, just like I did with Senator Shaheen, and say, okay, what is the good faith argument in this? You know what I mean? And in my opinion, Trump is still doing his damnedest to do the good faith thing. All these people throwing these, oh, he's controlled by Benjamin Netanyahu. He's controlled by Israel. Well, he told Benjamin to stop fighting with motherfucking Lebanon, and they stopped fighting for the last 3 months. And if we was really controlled by Israel, I think we would already have boots on the ground in Iran. He's been trying his damnedest to be a negotiator. And I think all of that shows and this kind of disproves this Zionist conspiracy to a large degree. But ultimately, I feel like we find ourselves in this country living day by day on this social media and not giving credit for a guy doing his best in good faith. You know what I mean? And I think ultimately, one way or the other, whether I disagree or you agree or Nate is, disagreeing or agreeing, I think ultimately what we need to highlight is that all of his actions have been on the up and up and haven't been nefarious,
No.
or
Or
self-deprecating.
secretive. Yeah.
Right, right. And that's kind of where I stand on that. I like the topic with you guys. I'm glad that we covered that. Anything else you want to add, Nate, to
Yeah.
this topic before we move on?
Just the War Resolution Act, where I was going with it was just an obstacle, a major obstacle when we are literally, of course, we have been saying this for quite a while, but we are literally at the eve, according to the president daily, that we're very close to a deal.
And
Very
they're
close.
just civilian representatives. Now they
But
came out on their own Twitter
yes,
and said that the straits are now open, but then they whack it back. So I do believe there's a big divide. You have a civilian leadership that keeps
yes,
doing the negotiating and the politics, and then you have a radical militant leadership that has the guns.
right.
And
But
you
until
know,
we get these congressmen and women from throwing these obstacles, which will never happen,
right,
not during this administration, but until we stop having them throw these obstacles to the American people, that's the last thing we need this week
right,
or any other
right,
time during
right,
this, man. That's
right,
not
right.
a serious thing to do, especially when they're not doing shit in the House of Representatives or the United States Senate right now,
True,
other
true,
than bullshit like this,
true,
just to throw a aha at the president of the
true.
United States.
True.
That's an insult on us, the voters, and us, the people.
True. And one last thing on that topic, I think that kind of, in my opinion, kind of supports my stance earlier, where I was like, man, that threat that he made about the bridges and the power plants, you got a civilian population, you got a civilian leadership that is angling and haggling for the people's approval and power in that country. There's a struggle going on that we are not living, we don't see, right? And then you have a radical militant population jumping on speedboats doing fuck shit in the strait, right? And sometimes there's this thing where you gotta fuck around and find out, right? That FAFO term. And I'm with you, Top, where when we talked about this a month ago, and you was like, man, I'm glad there's a ceasefire, there's no shooting. But ultimately, the whole world is suffering more and more day by day, the more we let this radical side of this shit keep going. And to some degree, if we can start destroying some of their infrastructure, yes, the populace will suffer. That's war.
Yeah.
That's war. But what ends up happening is there's more motivation from that civilian side to turn around at those radicals and turn on them with their population and start cooling and stop trying to negotiate internally, so they could turn around and say, look, we told you we're trying to negotiate, and you guys keep trying to instigate more war. We're trying to negotiate, but we're trying to, keep our shit homogenous. But you guys keep going out here with speedboats and shooting at whatever the fuck's moving.
Yeah.
And I think that internal struggle can be settled a little bit with a little bit of force. That's just my take on it. Might be wrong. What do you think, Top?
We'll pray for you. We're gonna, when we see Jesus, we'll be like, yeah, we know Ray did that one time. He did, and we told him there was going to be consequences. So we'll be praying for you.
Be right back.
Yeah, all right. Yeah,
we'll be praying for you.
Totally understand. Hey, man, I'm an archangel, man. I'm a battle angel, man. I fight on the side of righteousness, but I don't mind swinging that sword.
Oh, I just pray that so look, the minute that North Korea came on board and showed the world that they had a nuclear bomb, everybody got off their ass. Everybody shut up about them. Now they're a member of the world.
Was North Korea a terrorist organ? Were they terrorizing the world?
In a way, yeah, they were. For sure.
I don't know about that. It's not. No. They weren't supplying people across the world to go and bomb countries that had nothing to do with them, or I mean, they had an idea that South Korea was theirs, which is very differently than sending people to go and blow themselves up on planes, and sending IDs to wars that had nothing to do with them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
a little bit different. I mean,
Clinton had every opportunity to do what Trump's doing right now, and we're just not repeating history right now with Iran, like what President Clinton allowed, and previous presidents, and even presidents after. But Clinton he owned that one. He owned that one during the 90s when they had word from their intelligence, just like we have on Iran, or like we had on Iran. They had intelligence saying, hey, man, they're close. You better do something, and if you don't, then it's going to happen. And it happened. They let it happen.
Right. Hey, Top, I see a lot of comments over there. You want to run down some of them real quick?
Yeah. So what? I want to tell you, King says I'm right. So I just want to make sure you know that. Okay.
Nice shorts, Top. Your point is on point.
Yeah, whatever it was. Whatever I said, that was right. So thanks,
King.
King.
King, what's going on, Battle?
Yeah, man. And
no, that's me. He's saying I'm right. Speak softly, but carry big stick. Hey.
That's what I go. I agree. See, I'm with you. So Henry Davis says we gotta change the packs, right? Change the who's getting paid. And listen, I don't know what y'all thought about or think about term limits and stuff. Term limits are an interesting
thing. Necessary.
Well, one of the interesting things about our politicians now is that there's a permanent staff that stays in Washington and runs things and are on all of these committees and all they've got security clearances, they've got all the, and they stay and they are behind the scenes. And when a new congressman or senator shows up there, they get a briefing. Hey, just so you know, your best friend here is the senator from so-and-so, and your main enemy here is a congressperson from so-and-so. And they fill into this little role. And we got to be careful that the more what term limits does is it limits the power of an important, influential, good person. Right, you may get the right person in there that's very, very influential and it's very awesome, but all of a sudden they can't do the job anymore for their people. Like, what if you were to tell Polk County Sheriff's office that Grady Judd couldn't serve as sheriff anymore because he had term limits and you can't be sheriff no more? Right? It'd be like, oh hell no, that guy's my sheriff, man. You'd have a revolt, you know.
Yeah. That's a very good point, Top. I never really thought about it that way. You know, I always rail about the bureaucracy, you know, as the hidden nobility in America. You know, they're writing laws that shouldn't be written without congressional approval. There's a lot that they're doing, you know, behind the scenes that I 100% disagree with, actually. And I think my argument for term limits is more to the fact that um, some of these people go to Congress for a career and not to serve. Some of these people, you know, go in broke and come out multimillionaires 20 years later, you know, on $100,000 salary, right? And for me, when I look at these things and I see that type of stagnation and corruption, I ask myself, well, why did the founders even set this up this way in the first place? Right. And I look at the fact that, you know, in 1776, everything was traveled by horse and carriage. You know, this is a big ass country, and I drive across it all the time. And it takes me days to go get across at 70 miles an hour. Well, I can't imagine how long a piece of mail can get to Washington, you know what I'm saying, with, you know, horse and buggy back in the days when there wasn't no roads and everything was just whatever the fuck you ran across, you know. And also these individuals could be representative of their, you know, district, their town, their township, their village for their whole life because everybody knew them. You know, their town square was literally a town square. You know, and when Congress you know, arraigned and had their meetings, this was a fair that took a year away from them being around their people, because it took them 6-7 months just to get to Washington from some places. And then when they convened, they sat there for another 2-3 months, deliberate, you know, thinking about the laws and legislating new rules and understanding what's happening in Washington versus Louisiana and all these different things. So it took a lot of time for information to fly through. But what didn't change is those bureaucracies can be fired. They're at the privy of the executive branches. So, in my opinion, I feel like term limits could also affect those bureaucracies. And I think it's funny that we talked about this. We're talking about this. The CIA is a good example. You remember we were talking the other day about Tulsi Gabbard stepping down? And you know, the things that was circulation, some little, you know, turmoil between her and Trump and all. I don't really buy into all of that, but what I do buy into is the fact that days before she stepped down, there was reports of the CIA invading her office, and it was credible reports from Fox News, from Jesse Waters, from a sitting congresswoman down in Florida. And then all of a sudden everybody started walking it back.
Yeah.
Right. And then all of a sudden she had to step down. But if mind you, a couple months ago she had a hearing and she was blatantly calling out people that she believed broke the fucking law from the previous administration, from the administration before that, and a lot of these CIA agents and FBI agents that were appointed by the Obama administration. She was pointing out how they were spying on her on things, how some of the things that they were about to declassify could implement a lot of big players, and then all of a sudden she has to step down. And I don't like to dig too deep into conspiracies, too deep when I can't like root it into anything. But it's no coincidence, in my opinion, that the CIA, who has been trained by MI6, as we know, right, has espionage ways where that they're going to hold whatever leverage over individuals they can. The absolute gall of you go and take classified items out of the DNI, who is supposed to be a tier above you, their office, and say, no, fuck what the president's talking about. You're not going to declassify this, from the JFK murder assassination to the MLK assassination to UFO declassification. All of that shit's wiped away. And nobody's talking about it anymore. This was last week. We was all hyped about UFO declassification. And nobody's talking about it anymore. It's very, very suspicious. And I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And I believe, in my opinion, that the more that we force term limits, the more we can actually enact some kind of change. You can't keep murdering congressmen. You can't blackmail everybody. And these term limits get this turnover rate where we could possibly affect change in that deep swamp that Trump has been talking about, that a lot of people have been talking about. And that's kind of my take on term limits. I think that the idea that the president should have term limits and congressmen can hold their place for eternity is kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
You had something, Top?
Yeah. So I got a conspiracy we got to look into. So I need y'all's help with something. Okay. It's real world. Okay. I ever since I retired, I've even had the 2 different calls at 2 different cases from the FBI where somebody was using my pictures and part of my identity, and they were scamming ladies with it. And I got another message. It was yesterday morning by a lady that had fished another one out. So what I need to do is I'm going to send you guys this new information, and y'all got to catfish him for me. Okay. Yeah. We gotta figure out a way. Somebody will help, because I supposedly have his new info, okay, that he doesn't know I have what his new one is. And so if we can just, find a way to get him to bump into us, he knows all my stuff. So we got to come for something. I'm going to probably make a new one and see how I get a hold of him, make him anyway. But this is somebody that he uses his name like Richard Cooper or something. He's got all my pictures, says he's a paratrooper. He's a retired first sergeant. He's using pictures of my granddaughter and my parents. And I mean, it really pisses me off, dude. That's
fuckery. On that topic, that's a good segue into the SAVE Act. Now, why is this a good segue into the SAVE Act? Well, number one thing about the SAVE Act, Top, if you could share my screen. All right. The SAVE Act fails in the Senate again. A sweeping Republican election overhaul championed by President Donald Trump failed in the U.S. Senate on June 4th, 2026, after 4 Republican senators joined Democrats to block it. What the act would have done: the legislation, formerly the Safeguarding America Voter Eligibility Act, would have 1, required photo ID and proof of U.S. citizenship for all voters to register and cast ballots. 2, mandated that all states submit voter lists to a Department of Homeland Security tool, which has been criticized for erroneous flagging of U.S. citizens. 3, included other provisions such as limiting mail-in ballots. Oh, why is my stuff freezing up like that? Okay. Mail-in voting and banning certain gender transition related surgeries for minors. I don't know how that really coincides, but I'm not against that either. Critics, including the Southern Party Law Center and Campaign Legal Center, argue it will bar millions of eligible voters from participating, especially in states where few citizens hold required documents. Why it failed: unanimous Democratic opposition and lack of full GOP support meant the bill could not reach the 60 vote threshold needed to attach it to the nearly $70 billion immigration enforcement budget reconciliation package. The final vote was 48-50 or 48-52, depending on counting method, falling short by 12 votes. 4 GOP senators, the same ones we just talked about. Tom Tillis from North Carolina, one of my damn senators, Lisa Murkowski, Arkansas, Susan Collins, I don't know why she's Republican. She's really just a rhino. And Mitch McConnell, of course he did. Funny part about Mitch McConnell, he's been advocating for years for voter ID. And ironically, when it's time to actually vote for it, he votes against it, right? The political context. The bill had already passed the House in February, so Congress passed it on a near party line vote. Trump and some GOP allies framed it as common sense, which in my opinion it is. Measures to prevent voter fraud, but opponents called it a voter suppression scheme. Polls showed strong public support for voter ID. Around 80% of the populace. This is bipartisan. People, the populace wants it, which Trump cited as evidence of his popularity, which he was not wrong, right? And before we dig into it, I want to highlight something. California.
Oh, there it is. I was waiting for you to say something about that. That's recent, right? That's going on right now. You talking about the primary gubernatorial? Yeah, and
all
the
of that
LA
stuff.
mayor. Yeah, primary for the mayor. Yeah,
California.
We're still only at like 53% complete.
Right. But then here we go.
The vote was Tuesday, by the way.
Yep. So we have where is it at? California. Look at this. Why California doesn't require ID to vote? Walking into a voting booth in California doesn't usually involve showing a driver's license or a passport. That surprises a lot of people, especially if they've lived or visited states where voters are routinely asked for ID before casting a ballot. I just wanted to highlight that real quick before we move on, because there's a lot of liberal states out here that think it's okay to just allow anybody to vote, to harvest mail-in votes. We got a electoral race going on in Los Angeles right now that is absolutely disgusting to me, because we had a once in my lifetime candidate that was coming in and actually about to change some things. I don't know if you guys seen this viral guy, Spencer Pratt, about to be a mayor.
Yeah.
He was trying to be a mayor. He was going against, of course, Karen Bass. She's failed. And Nivea Rahman. Nivea Rahman is reportedly, well, not reportedly. I've seen videos on it. I could pull it up, but I don't want to drag it too long. She's the same socialist commie that thinks that it's okay for homeless people and encampments that be across the street from schools, and that they need to defund the police, which we're going to get into that shortly, and all these socialist hot tax the rich policies, all this stuff. It looked like he actually had a shot to actually face in a primary election against Karen Bass. And here we are, in the middle of the night, after election night. They're talking about it's going to take 3 weeks for them to finish counting mail-in votes for 5 million people. You got countries that are counting there on election day. Colombia just did it in 1 day. They have well over 40 million people. Like, how is California still getting this wrong? And why are we letting this happen? What's happening? What is your take on it, Top?
Look, the folks that are trying to cheat have been going around and doing it now for several elections. They've been harvesting votes under people have been paying money, and it's showing time and time again. I think that we have to find some way to bring some integrity into it. I don't know enough about it, though, to talk about the details, other than it would make sense to me that you would require an ID, that you would do it in 1 day, and the limits for mail-in ballots would be very, very small. Very small.
Yeah, and like we had to in the military, man.
Yeah. What do you got to say about it, Nate?
Well,
Pretty much the same
cheating.
thing.
It's cheating. Same thing that Top just said. It's cheating. Laura Ingraham had a good point the other night. She's been pushing this subject for the last ever since Tuesday. It's a good point, great point, and I wish I can remember, and I should have wrote it down. I need to research it. I mean, we can bring it back up again soon. But there's a constitutional act written in the Constitution that Congress does have authority to vote and pass on something to stop this from happening.
Right.
Where there is a 24-hour voting limit per state. Majority of states do it already, but it's your blue states, your blue cities. It's consistent and it's repetitive.
These individuals that, and this is why I'm worried about, I hate term limits. Mitch McConnell should have been the fuck out of Congress, right?
That motherfucker can't even say a straight sentence, dude.
You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are we doing? So that's one of the great examples of why term limits need to be implemented, in my opinion, right? Another thing that bothers me about the circumstance is the fact that elections have consequences. If we keep electing Republicans that don't stick to the code or stick to the idea of what the fuck are we fighting for if we're just going to allow them to cheat this way? You got people that are voting against trying to substantiate our elections. Because if we can't substantiate our elections and make them trustworthy, honest, there's no purpose in us even fighting at all. Everybody need to just get guns and wait for all fucking collapse. That's what we need to wait on if that's the case. Because that's the civil way to release the pressure and the tension in some kind of way and enact some kind of change, right? And to elaborate a little bit more on this point, I need to highlight another liberal city fucking around and finding out and getting what they're asking for. All right. We talked about the Seattle mayor. I'm gonna show a little clip real quick from this guy's called Nate the Lawyer, and he did a good collage of what's going on in Seattle. And I just want to play a clip of his real quick so you guys can kind of get what I'm coming from. And this is not the first city, not the last city. This is what's happening in Los Angeles. And you would think these people learned their lesson and voted these people out of power. There's no reason why Karen Bass should have been leading the polls in the first place. I felt like maybe if there wasn't cheating and she got a good primary against Spencer Pratt, maybe he could have won some of those socialists that were voting for Nithya Raman over to his side. Maybe not. Don't know. But when it's all said and done, I feel like this is a perfect example of what we're dealing with and what's happening in these liberal cities. And after we finish this clip, I'm going to explain to you guys, in my opinion, why I believe that this affects us all, even if we're not in a liberal city. All right. Get this playing.
Seattle has turned into Mad Max Thunderdome. For example, the new mayor doesn't mind if you use drugs in the middle of the street.
Crowds gather on sidewalks, some openly using drugs while others sell stolen goods.
We see two things happening at 12th and Jackson, and there's a drug crisis fueled by the stolen goods market.
Now, since drugs are legal, street gangs are fighting over the turf.
4 shootings in 72 hours.
Now at 6, terrified neighbors in North Seattle are barricading their own streets after bullets tear through homes.
It's been one shooting after another, and neighbors living near Aurora Avenue are on edge once again.
Even when the mayor's holding events, they shooting up the building.
And we begin here at 11 with breaking news. Seattle police are investigating after bullets hit a building in the Yesler Terrace neighborhood while Mayor Katie Wilson was attending a community event with children and families.
All right, so let's talk about the madness that's going on in Seattle, Washington. Now, Seattle is run by socialist mayor Katie Wilson. They call her the Mandami of the West. Now, she just assumed office January 1st, 2026. So we can only blame her for stuff that happens after that date. Things that happen before that, you really can't give her any credit for. So let's take a look at how crime was in the city of Seattle before Katie Wilson arrived.
The Seattle Police Department released its crime stats for 2025 this afternoon.
Today I stand before you encouraged.
The chief releasing the department's year-in review today says there was a 36% reduction in homicides in 2025, with 21 fewer lives lost, the lowest number since the pandemic. And he says SPD reported that of those cases, many were solved. He says in 2025, they had a homicide clearance rate of 86% compared to just 57% in 2024. The numbers also included a reduction in people struck by gunfire by 36% last year and an 8% drop in aggravated assaults, a 24% reduction in reports of stolen vehicles, and a large increase in firearms recovered. Barnes said a focus on retention and recruitment paid off in 2025 with more than 160 officers hired, along with a reduced number of separations.
So that sounds amazing. Crime is down, more officers on the streets. Things are looking good in the city of Seattle. But now they elect Katie Wilson, the socialist. Now, Katie Wilson's position on the police department was essentially she was in favor of defunding the police. Her opponent during the mayoral election called her out for it.
And the repercussions from my opponent's defund movement cost us a lot of officers, cost us morale. So we've been rebuilding a system. Homicides are down over 40%. Shots fired are down. Serious crimes are down. Property crimes are down. My opponent has no background in public safety, except arguing to defund it. So if you want to move forward with a great police department, the choice should be clear in this race.
But none of that mattered, and Katie Wilson won the election anyway, being sworn in January 1st of this year.
For the position of mayor of the city of Seattle.
Actually has a new mayor. Katie Wilson was sworn in about 2 hours ago during a ceremony at Seattle City Hall. She is now the third woman to lead the Pacific Northwest's largest
What
city.
does third woman have to do in
When it
anything?
comes to defund the police, Zoran Mamdani and Katie Wilson.
Same reason Kamala Harris was the vice president.
At first, they tell people they're going to defund the police. Then when they're running for office, they switch and say, we're not really going to defund the police. Matter of fact, we're going to make the community safer. And then when they get in the office, they eventually defund the police. So I've shown you how back in 2025, crime was getting lower. They hired more police. Things were going well. Now Katie Wilson's taken over and things are starting to get really, really bad. Now, Katie Wilson's only been in there for what, 4 or 5 months. So you could say, Nate, how bad has it gotten? Well, first, let's start with the mayor's soft on crime policies. You can't have open air drug use. You can human traffic. You can sell stolen goods on the street. And because of the policies of their socialist mayor, police aren't going to arrest you. They're going to refer you.
Open drug use, street sales, and crime happening in plain view, leaving many in Seattle wondering why more isn't being done.
In neighborhoods like Little Saigon, the drug crisis is hard to miss. Crowds gather on sidewalks, some openly using drugs while others sell stolen goods.
You know, we see two things happening at 12th and Jackson, and that's there's a drug crisis fueled by the stolen goods market, and then there's also a housing crisis.
Still, the reality on the ground looks different, and open drug use remains a common sight in many parts of Seattle.
I think we need to scale up all our resources. I think what we're doing now is just not enough. It's too little, too late.
Now, because the city is essentially letting all this crime occur, street gangs are now shooting up the city trying to fight over particular turf.
We begin with neighbors on edge after they've witnessed 4 shootings in 72 hours. Neighbors living near 97th and Aurora say they've all happened in just this one city block. The latest shooting was caught on camera early this morning with around 20 or more shots fired.
Cool story now, a story you've heard over and over here on Cairo News. Gunfire rattling neighborhoods along Aurora Avenue, and it happened again early this morning. Shocking surveillance footage.
Oh, sorry about that. Thing is kind of laggy.
Residents in a Seattle neighborhood have built homemade barricades to block their streets, and they're trying to stop.
That's what's crazy to me. They
illegal-
got Americans building barricades to their neighborhood.
Barricading their own streets after bullets tear through homes. The desperate move is meant to stop the gunfire from reaching their doorsteps.
It comes
Elections
after
have
residents like
consequences.
Kate and Peter say they've documented at least.
That's the problem, man. These same cities and states keep voting these same people in. Unbelievable, man.
Of their homes.
They won't do that stuff around my neighborhood. They'll get shot. They'll get shot back. These country boys around here blow somebody up, boy.
Requires permits to block or place structures in public streets.
Yeah.
Generation.
All right.
This is a generational problem, man.
Yeah. And I have some hypotheses. This is next video. We're gonna talk about that real quick. But matter of fact, I want to explain. While we're here, might as well play it. This lady is a perfect example of why I feel this is happening to the populace, right? Let me see. How do I get this thing back? Oh my goodness.
$1 billion. He then promptly lost half of its value
Oh
for his
my.
investors. So he has to figure out, how do I make these investors happy so they will keep giving.
Okay. So essentially, this lady, I guess she's getting a large following on TikTok, right? Let's see if I could bring this thing back a little bit. She's getting a large following on TikTok. And the reason why she's getting a large following on TikTok is she's like the socialist mom, right? This video is got 1.3 million views, 61,000 some odd likes, and this new generation is being led by socialist identity. There's 250 of those Seattle mayors in Congress, fucking Senate, uh mayoral positions all across the country, all a part of the Democratic Socialists of American Party, a wing of the Democratic Party. And people aren't realizing that this is a threat, because when things are going bad all over the country, you can live in your little area and think everything's okay. But the problem is this stuff starts spilling out and the federal government starts raising more taxes, but they can't afford it anymore. They can't keep you can't squeeze more juice out of a prune. It's already dried. We're already servicing our debt at 14%, and the vast majority of uh uh our payments and our budget is going to social programs directly to cities like this, bailing them out fucking year in and out. And this is what brings the argument of certain states wanting to secede from the union. Because it's like, if y'all are not going to fix y'all shit and you keep fucking voting the same people in, why do we have to fund the bill? Why do we have to cover down for the fraud? Why do we have to cover down for these hospice care centers that are run by Somalis, and now everybody's suffering from it? The people that actually need the care aren't getting the federal approval because now they got to water the shit down. So these things matter, and it's because I think people are living online and being brainwashed by shit like this. This lady is expressing her idea of what's about to happen with SpaceX IPO. Top, me and you talked about SpaceX IPO and a little bit yesterday when I was like, yeah, I'm excited. I got a couple dollars sitting aside for the IPO. But if you pay attention to what she's saying, you'll quickly understand that she's talking fast, but she's not really saying much. But it
Where'd you go, Ray?
Lost your volume, Ray.
He's glitching out.
Yeah, he froze up. Yeah.
Well, it's been another episode of the NBC Room, man. We've had a good time. It has been wonderful, dude. I've had a blast. I love this. I'm looking forward to doing it more. So we'll sign off here, everybody. We'll have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Marshall in the middle.